Ah, Dark Souls 3. It feels like just yesterday I was hearing rumors about you. Now I'm as much as a Souls series fanatic as the next guy, but when I saw the leaks and the eventual announcement at E3, I remembered that I wasn't excited. Instead, I was worried. I couldn't help but be anxious about how well the game would turn out after its third yearly release in a row. The thought of my favorite series being pimped out and dumbed down as much as Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty was really scary to me. But here I sit, 40 hours in, and I gotta say, the game f***ing delivers.
He needs some milk.
The combat is easily the best of the series. It perfectly meshes the elements of Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne that worked, like guard breaking, jumping with L3 and get-up rolls, and throws them into the silky smooth responsive controls identical to Dark Souls 1. The combat system isn't the only thing that borrows from past games. The decisions to keep in the ability to respec your character, as well as begin NG+ whenever you're ready to start it, are more than welcome, and only serve to make the game more user-friendly, instead of having to start a new character every time you want to try a new build. Visually, the game is beautiful, as expected, but it isn't quite as sexy as Bloodborne. I don't think it matches the unique art direction and style of the PS4 exclusive, but the simple fact that you're able to play this one at 60 FPS might give it that slight edge for some people. However, despite how good most of the game looks, it feels very sporadically optimized. The majority of the game kept a smooth 60 FPS, but a few areas brought me down to a consistent 40 or 30, and one specific late game area brought me down to 20 FPS. These aren't just dips, people, these were consistent, low frame rates, and I'm on a 970. Hopefully this will be optimized for the full release, and hopefully they can start filling in some of the gaps in the world. Really guys? Are we going back to Dark Souls 2 now? Speaking of the world, let's talk about how the levels of the game are set up. Is it like Dark Souls, where all of the areas feel concise and connected? Or is it like Dark Souls 2, where levels feel jammed and thrown together? Well, I've got some bad news. This is arguably the most linear game of the series. I love the non-linear design of Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, where you could chip away at multiple areas at a time and complete them in whatever order you wanted to, but this kind of design has slowly dwindled as we've gone through the years, and in Dark Souls 3 it's almost completely absent. There are some really great and huge optional levels to explore, but when it comes to the levels that you have to beat, there isn't much flexibility in the order you can complete them. This'll disappoint some, but what's more important than the layout of the levels is the design of the levels themselves. I won't go into detail, but just keep in mind that Miyazaki directed this title, you know what you're getting with this one, some damn good level design, and the famous shortcut porn that Miyazaki knows you love so much. I'm glad to say that Dark Souls 3 nails its pacing. It knows what levels should be long and giant dungeons, and what areas should be shorter, sort of finales that focus mainly on their boss fights. And goddamn, the boss fights are they good! I don't think anything in this game surprised me as much as Ludwig did back in the day, but From Software still remains the king of video game boss fights. No one else can match that feeling you get when you finally get the boss down to half their health, and everything's going smoothly until they say, "Bitch, that was just phase 1!" And they change forms into some majestic creature, and the beautiful and powerful Motoi Sakuraba music is pumping in the background, and your heart is beating out of your chest, and your dick won't stop growing in size! Only a handful of bosses miss the mark, and when they do, it isn't by very much. Rest assured, the worst they ever get is a kind of meh feeling. There's nothing like the bed of chaos. But the most important boss we have to talk about is the final boss. Now don't worry, we won't be spoiling anything, but holy shit, are you gonna love this final boss. I can't imagine a better battle or a better premise that would suit the finale of the series more than what we have here. And if I may say a brief, spoiler-free word about the ending, to the longtime Dark Souls fan, if you're worried about it, if Dark Souls 1 and 2 have you expecting more of the same, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. That's all I'm gonna say, just please don't spoil it for yourself. Dark Souls 3 may not have been as massive as Dark Souls 2, or as charming as Dark Souls 1 was, but I couldn't have asked for a better finale to the series. The combat rocks. The world may be linear, but it's massive and sensible. It makes me so happy to think that PC players who want to get into the series, who don't want to f*** with Dark Souls 1's terrible optimization, or settle with the worst of the series, they have Dark Souls 3 to turn to. It's incredible. You can still enjoy Dark Souls 3 very much if it's your first Souls title, but you owe it to yourself to play Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 3 feels like the Souls game for Souls players. There is some incredible fan service to longtime fans of the series. When it comes to difficulty, I know the other games were hard, but goddamn did they ramp it up with some of these bosses. There are a couple times I thought to myself, they're expecting way too much of the average player. But hey man, the harder the game is, the better you'll feel once you beat it.